The alien girl in the cage. The air inside the cargo pit was hot and dirty. The lights flickered above, making shadows dance across rows of cages. Most were empty. Only one cage had something still alive. Inside that cage, a young alien girl sat, hugging her knees. Her silver blue skin was bruised, her long white hair was tangled. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her name was Zira, and she believed she would die here. She had heard the stories. Her people, the Liverons, believed humans were monsters. They didn't just fight, they ate. Some said humans drank alien blood. Others said they cooked their prey over fire like beasts. And Zira had been captured by raiders and brought to this planet, Earth. Now she was just cargo. Her ears twitched as footsteps echoed from the metal stairs. Someone was coming down. Another buyer, whispered, the alien trader with sharp teeth and greasy hands. You're lucky, girl. Maybe he'll eat you fast. Zira closed her eyes. Her small frame shivered. She had stopped praying. No gods answered in cages. The human buyer stepped into view. He was tall, muscular, dressed in worn battle armor with dirt on his boots. A scar ran from his jaw to his neck. He looked like a killer. Zira's heart pounded. The human looked at her through the bars. His eyes didn't show hunger. They looked tired. What's her price? He asked. Only 5 credits. She's half-starved. Not good for work. Might as well cook her. Zira gasped. Cook? The human frowned. Shut up, he said to the trader, tossing a small bag. 5 credits. The trader grinned. She's yours. The cage creaked as the lock opened. Zira backed into the corner. Please, she whispered in a broken voice. Make it quick. The human knelt down outside the door. What's your name? She stared, confused. No, human had ever asked that. Zira, I'm Corbin, he said, and I'm not going to hurt you. She didn't believe him. Corbin stood and held the cage door open. Come, Zira didn't move. I'm not forcing you, he said, then turned around and walked a few steps away. For a full minute, nothing happened. Then Zira stood slowly. Her legs were weak, but she stepped out. She expected chains, a collar, a leash. But there was nothing. Corbin walked ahead without even looking back. She followed like a shadow, silent and ready to run if needed. Outside the pit, the night was cold. Lights blinked on ships in the sky. Corbin led her to a small shuttle, old but clean. He opened the door and motioned for her to enter. Zira hesitated. What is this? She asked. My ship. You're safe here. He stepped inside. She followed. Still unsure. The ship hummed quietly. Inside it was warm. There was a chair, a soft bed, and a table with food on it. Zira's eyes went wide. He sat down and pointed at the plate. You hungry? She blinked. Is this a trick? No. Trick, sit, eat. She sat slowly and stared at the food. It smelled good, but her hands didn't move. I don't understand, she said. What don't you understand? Why, aren't you eating me? Corbin stared at her for a moment. Then he laughed, softly, kindly. Because I don't eat people, he said. That's not what humans do. But everyone says they're wrong. Zira's fingers slowly reached for a piece of bread. She took a small bite. Her eyes widened. It was warm, soft, real. She hadn't tasted real food in days. Corbin leaned back and closed his eyes. Eat all you want. You're free now. Zira kept chewing, but her mind raced. Free? She was still in a stranger's ship, still in a strange world. But, for the first time since her capture, the fear began to fade, just a little. After eating, she looked around the room. There were no locks, no cameras, no traps, only silence. Corbin stood and walked to the small bed in the corner. He sat down, removed his boots, and lay back. You can take the chair, he said. I'm tired. Zira stood frozen. You're sleeping? Now? Yes. You're not going to chain me? He looked at her, eyes half closed. I'm not your enemy. Then he turned away and pulled the blanket over his chest. Zira stared at him. What kind of human was this? She stayed awake all night, watching, waiting. But the human didn't move, he just slept. Like he had nothing to fear. She whispered to herself, maybe not all humans eat people. And for the first time she wondered if the stories were wrong. The morning light crept through the small round window of Corbin's ship. Zira hadn't slept. She had stayed in the corner of the room watching the human all night. He didn't move much, just turned a little in his sleep and made soft breathing sounds. There were no chains, no knives, no signs that he planned to eat her. Still, she didn't trust it. Now, the human was awake. He stretched his arms and yawned like some lazy beast, not like a killer. Then he walked past her, giving only a short nod, and disappeared behind a small wall in the ship. Zira sat still, wondering what came next. Maybe now he'd show his real side. Maybe now he would hurt her. But instead, a strange smell filled the air, warm, rich, and almost sweet. Her stomach made a loud sound, betraying her hunger. Corbin returned, holding a small tray with 2 plates. He set it on the table in front of her. Breakfast, he said casually. Zira blinked. There were eggs, a soft roll, some kind of warm drink. It all smelled like something from a dream. She stared at the food, then at him. What is this? She asked quietly. Food. For me? He nodded. Of course. She looked down at the plate again. But I thought I was the food. Corbin frowned slightly and then sat down opposite her. You really believe humans eat aliens? Zira didn't answer. She just looked at him, unsure if he was joking or testing her. My people, they said humans boil us, roast us, that you bite bones. Corbin gave a tired smile. We don't do that. Maybe your people met the wrong kind of humans. Zira still didn't touch the plate. Corbin leaned back. Listen, if I wanted to hurt you, I wouldn't feed you. I wouldn't let you sleep on my ship. I wouldn't let you walk free. That made sense, but fear was hard to shake. She picked up the soft roll and took a small bite. It melted on her tongue. Her eyes widened. It was delicious. For the first time since she had been captured, she felt something other than fear. A tiny, fragile piece of peace. She took more bites, faster this time. Her hand still trembled, but the warmth from the food started to push the cold out of her chest. Corbin watched without speaking. He saw the way she guarded her plate with her arms, like someone might steal it. The way she chewed too fast, ready to run. This wasn't just hunger, this was survival. When she was done, she looked up, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand. Why did you buy me? She asked. Corbin didn't answer right away. He seemed to be thinking carefully. I don't like seeing people in cages, he said finally. No matter what species. But you didn't even know me. I didn't have to. Zira frowned. That made no sense in her world. In her world, no one did anything without a reason. No one gave without wanting something back. Then what do you want from me? She asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. Corbin stood up and picked up the empty plate. Nothing. You're free. The words echoed in her head. Free. But what? Did that even mean now? She followed him as he moved toward the back of the ship where the sleeping room and control panel were. The ship was quiet, clean, and strange, unlike the cold cages she had known. Corbin looked at her again. You can stay until we reach the outer colonies. Then I'll drop you somewhere safe. No cages, no traders, no humans if that's what you want. Zira's breath caught in her throat. You're letting me go? Yes. Her eyes filled with tears she hadn't felt in years. She turned her face away, embarrassed. No one ever let me go before, she whispered. He paused. Then maybe they were the real monsters. The words hit her deep. Something inside her chest cracked open. She sat down near the door, hugging her knees again, but this time it wasn't from fear. It was confusion. Her whole life, she had been told humans were dangerous, that they only take and destroy. But this one fed her, let her sleep, didn't touch her, didn't ask for anything. She stared at Corbin's back as he adjusted the ship's settings. He looked strong but not cruel, rough but not wicked. Her thoughts swirled. Maybe, just maybe, everything she had been told was wrong. But if this human wasn't her enemy, then who was? As the ship left the planet's orbit and entered the stars, Zira's heart beat differently, not just from fear, from something new, hope. Zira stood at the edge of the small room, her silver-blue skin glowing faintly under the soft lights of the human ship. The hum of engines filled the silence like a lullaby, but she could not sleep. She had been given food. She had been given kindness. She had been given a bed, yet all of it felt like a test. In her world, no kindness came free. The human, Corbin, was asleep again. He lay on the bed with one arm resting behind his head, the other hanging loosely at his side. His boots were off, his weapon belt on the floor near the wall, not near his hand. That puzzled Zira. A warrior always sleeps with his weapon near. Everyone knew that, but not this human. Zira stepped closer quietly. She expected him to flinch, to reach for a blade or suddenly open one eye. But he didn't. He just breathed softly, his chest rising and falling, as if her presence meant nothing. Or maybe, as if her presence meant peace. Her eyes studied, his face in the dim light. He had a scar along his jaw, rough skin and short dark hair. He didn't look kind. He didn't look like the heroes from her childhood songs. And yet, he had not once hurt her. She crouched beside the bed, watching him, not with fear anymore, but with a question growing in her heart. Why? Why had he helped her? Why had he risked his credits to free her? What kind of human didn't ask for something in return? Back in the trade pit, every glance had meant danger. Every hand reached to chain grab or claim, but Corbin hadn't even touched her since she stepped into his ship. Not once. She looked at the door. It wasn't locked. There was no collar. No cuffs. Freedom was hers. She could escape right now if she wanted. But where would she go? The galaxy outside was full of worse monsters than the ones in her old stories. She was weak, underfed, and alone. And the only being who had shown her kindness was this human. Suddenly, Corbin groaned and shifted slightly, rolling onto his side. Zira froze, her breath caught in her chest. His eyes opened just slightly. She stood quickly, ready to run, but he didn't sit up. He just blinked at her with sleepy eyes, then whispered, "You okay?" The words hit her like a soft wind. Gentle. Real. Zira nodded slowly. I'm not used to sleeping without chains." Corbin gave a tired smile. "You don't need chains here, not now, not ever." He closed his eyes again and was asleep within seconds. Zira stood there for a long moment. She could feel the weight of the night pressing against her back. She could leave. She could run. But instead, she walked to the chair near the wall and sat down, curling her legs under her. Sleep didn't come easily, but something in her chest began to soften. Something that had been hard for years. Hours passed. When morning came again, Zira was half asleep, in the chair. She opened her eyes as the scent of heat and oil filled the air. Corbin was in the control seat, pressing buttons and reading blinking lights. "You slept in the chair all night?" he asked, not turning. "Yes," she answered quietly. "You could have taken the bed. I don't mind." Zira shook her head. "Beds were never safe for me." Corbin didn't say anything at first. Then he stood and brought a metal box toward her. He placed it on the table and opened it. Inside were clothes. New ones. Clean. "I found these," he said. "Might fit. I know yours are torn." Zira looked down at her ragged clothes. The fabric was thin, dirty, full of holes. She hesitated. "Why do you keep helping me?" she asked finally. "You don't know me. I could be lying. I could be dangerous." Corbin looked straight at her. "Because you deserve better. That's enough for me." Zira swallowed hard. Her throat burned, not from pain but something deeper. She didn't have words for it yet, but something had changed inside her. She took the clothes and stood up. "Where can I change?" He pointed toward the back. "Small washroom, left door." She disappeared into the small room, and for the first time she saw herself in a mirror. Her face was thin, her arms bruised, and her eyes wide and lost. But beneath all that, there was still life. She dressed slowly. The clothes were warm and soft. They smelled like dust and metal, but they were clean. And they were hers. When she stepped back out, Corbin looked up and gave a simple nod. "Better," he said. Zira didn't reply. She just sat down. She still didn't trust the galaxy. But maybe, just maybe, she could start to trust one human. It started with a loud bang, metal clashing against metal. Zira jumped from her seat, her eyes wide with fear. The floor of the ship shook slightly. The blinking lights on the control panel turned red. A sharp alarm rang through the ship, followed by a mechanical voice. "Warning. Unidentified vessel approaching. Shields at 60%. Corbin was already at the controls. His hands moved fast, pressing buttons, pulling levers. He didn't look afraid, just focused. "Pirates," he said. "I should have guessed they'd follow us." Zira's voice trembled. "They're coming. For me? Maybe," Corbin said. "Or maybe they just want an easy target. Doesn't matter. They won't get you." The ship rocked again. Zira stumbled and grabbed the wall for balance. Her heart raced. All those terrible nights in cages, all those hands reaching for her, and now it was happening again. Only this time, she wasn't helpless. Corbin stood up and handed her a small device. It looked like a square stone with a button. "If anything happens to me, press this," he said. "What does it do?" "It locks you in the engine bay. No one can open it without my code. It's the safest place on the ship." Zira looked at the button, then at Corbin. "You're protecting me?" He gave her a quick glance. "Of course I am. Stay behind me." Outside the ship's window, a pirate vessel moved closer. Black and sharp like a metal shark, its weapons began to glow. Corbin grabbed his plasma rifle and slammed a hand on the wall panel. The ship opened a hidden compartment, revealing armor and a second weapon. He pulled a helmet over his head and turned to Zira. "Hide if you can, but if you can't, use this." He tossed her a small pulse knife, a simple blade that hummed with energy. Zira had never held a weapon before. Her hands shook. The enemy ship latched onto theirs with a loud clang. Moments later, the door at the back burst open with sparks. Pirates flooded in, tall, armored, their faces covered. They screamed in strange tongues and raised their guns. Corbin didn't hesitate. He fired once, twice, fast and deadly. 2 pirates dropped instantly. Zira crouched behind the control panel, watching in horror. Then she saw one of the pirates sneak up behind Corbin with a blade raised. "Corbin!" she screamed. He turned too late. The blade slashed across his side. Blood spilled. Corbin dropped to one knee, groaning in pain. The pirate raised his weapon again, but before he could strike, Zira moved. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just acted. With a cry, she jumped forward and drove the pulse knife into the pirate's back. The energy blade pierced through armor. The pirate screamed and fell. Corbin looked up at her in shock. "You stabbed him," he muttered. "I had to," she said, panting. "You would have died." Corbin smiled even through the pain. "Guess you're not as helpless as you thought." More pirates came. Together, Corbin and Zira fought them off. She wasn't strong, but she was quick and brave. By the time the last enemy fell, the ship was silent again. Smoke filled the air. The floor was covered in bodies and blood. Corbin leaned against the wall, holding his side. Zira ran to him. "You're hurt." "I've had worse," he muttered. You're bleeding. He laughed weakly. Yeah, that happens when you get stabbed. She helped him walk to the med station. His blood was warm, real. It scared her. She had never seen someone risk their life. For her. Why? She asked, voice breaking. Why do you keep risking yourself? I'm no one. I'm just some alien girl. Corbin grunted as he sat down. You're not just anything. You're a person, and I protect people. She wiped blood from his side, her hands shaking. But you don't even know me. He looked at her with tired eyes. I know enough. Zira didn't speak after that. She just cleaned the wound, wrapped the bandage tight, and sat beside him. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of something unspoken, something that had started to grow. Trust. She looked at her hands, the same hands that had held chains, now holding bandages, the same hands that had once been too weak to fight, now saving someone. Outside, the stars shined. The danger had passed. But inside Zira, something even bigger had changed. She was no longer just a survivor. She was something else, and she would never be the same again. Zira sat beside Corbin in the quiet med bay of the ship. The floor still carried the marks of battle, burned patches from plasma, smeared blood from pirates, and broken pieces of armor scattered around. But the silence now felt different. Not like fear. It felt calm. Corbin was resting, his wound tightly bandaged. The bleeding had slowed, though he was still pale. He didn't speak much. He didn't need to. Zira stayed close, watching every breath he took. She had never cared for someone like this before, not even on her own planet, and that scared her more than the pirates ever had. Zira reached out and gently touched the edge of the blood-stained bandage on his side. Her fingers trembled. She remembered the moment she saw him fall, the moment. Her heart almost stopped. You didn't have to protect me, she whispered. Corbin opened one eye, weak but awake. I did, he said. Why? I'm nothing. I was born in a hole, sold like meat. On my planet, no one would have lifted a hand for me. You're not meat, Corbin said, his voice stronger than before. You're not cargo. You're someone. Zira turned away. Her throat tightened. You don't understand, she said. Back home, the elders said humans eat our kind. They said we're nothing but soft skins and pretty bones for your fire pits. When they threw me in that cage, I told myself to stop hoping, to accept it. I thought you were going to devour me the moment you bought me. Corbin chuckled softly, then winced in pain. I've been called many things, but never a man-eater. Zira looked at him, her silver eyes full of confusion and pain. So why did you do it? Why buy me? Why fight for me? Corbin looked away, staring at the ship's ceiling like he was searching for the answer in the stars. I was stationed on a mining colony once, he said. The miners kept a Liveran boy locked in a cage. They said he was a thief. I didn't know better. I thought he was a thief. One night, the boy escaped. He ran into the cold zone and froze to death. Turned out, he was just trying to find his sister. Zira blinked, listening carefully. I never forgot his face, Corbin continued. I could have helped him, but I didn't. I won't make that mistake again. Zira's hands were in her lap now. She didn't know what to say. She had spent her life hiding, surviving, fearing every footstep. Now someone had fought for her. Someone had bled for her. No one had ever looked at her the way Corbin did, like she mattered. She stood and walked to the ship's mirror again. She didn't recognize herself. The girl in the reflection wasn't a prisoner anymore. Her skin still had bruises, her hair still wild, but there was something different in her eyes, something alive. She returned to Corbin and sat beside him, again. She reached for the knife he had given her during the fight and laid it in his hand. I'm not giving this back, she said. I just want you to know. I'll use it if I have to. I'll fight for you now. Corbin smiled faintly. That's all I ask. There was silence again, but this time it was comfortable. Like the quiet between two souls who had survived something together. Zira leaned her head lightly on the edge of the bed just beside his arm. "I've never felt this safe before," she whispered. "You are safe," Corbin said, "as long as I'm breathing." She closed her eyes, letting herself believe it. Just for a while. Then her voice came again, quiet, but certain. "They called me food. A thing. But you don't see me that way." "I see someone brave," Corbin said. "Someone stronger than she knows." Her lips curled into a small smile. "You're the first person to say that." He didn't answer. His hand, rough and warm, lightly touched her arm. Not as a command, not as ownership, but as a bond, a promise. Zira didn't move away. For once, the touch didn't scare her. And in that moment, she finally believed the truth. She was never food, never cargo, never nothing. She was someone. The sky above Alaris was wide and filled with soft, drifting clouds. Bright twin suns warmed the ground and gentle winds moved across the hills. Zira stepped off the ship slowly, her bare feet touching solid earth that didn't smell like oil or metal. For the first time in years, the ground under her feet didn't belong to a cage. She closed her eyes and breathed in deep, fresh air. No chains, no watchers, no walls. Corbin stood nearby, watching her quietly. He didn't rush her. He didn't speak. He understood what this moment meant. Alaris was known as a place for refugees, runaways, and those who wanted a second chance. It was not ruled by empires or slave traders. There were no auctions here, no fences, just communities who believed that every soul deserved peace. Corbin finally broke the silence. "There's a village a few miles ahead, friendly people, quiet living." Zira turned to him. "And you trust them?" "I've been here before," he said. "They helped me once, before I became a soldier, before everything." Zira's eyes stayed on him for a moment longer. She nodded. "Then I'll trust them, too." They walked together along a dusty path leading into green hills. Birds sang in the trees. Strange flowers bloomed at their feet. Zira had never seen a world like this. She had only known dark markets and sharp metal. Here, everything felt softer. As they neared the village, Zira saw children playing in the fields. A large furry animal followed them, barking joyfully. None of them looked afraid. No one stared at her. No one pointed. For the first time, she wasn't the alien. She was just someone passing by. A woman with gray hair waved them over and offered water. Corbin nodded and introduced Zira. The woman smiled kindly and gave her a piece of warm bread. Zira held it in her hand for a long time before eating it. "Not poisoned," Corbin whispered with a grin. Zira laughed quietly and took a bite. It was sweet. It reminded her of nothing, and that was a good thing. That night, they stayed in a small guest house on the edge of the village. Corbin worked with a few farmers to repair broken equipment. Zira sat with a group of village women who painted small patterns on stone tablets. She didn't speak much, but she listened. She watched their hands move with calm and care. A little girl with 4 eyes and golden skin sat beside Zira and handed her a brush. "Try it," the girl said. Zira hesitated, then dipped the brush in color. Her fingers were clumsy, unsure, but the girl only smiled. "It's not about being perfect, it's about creating." And so Zira painted. And when she finished, her hands were stained with red and gold and her heart felt lighter. Later, under the stars, Zira and Corbin sat on the roof of the guest house. "Never imagined this," Zira whispered. "Peace. Laughter. No cages." "You earned it," Corbin said. "No," she replied. "You gave it to me." Corbin shook his head. "I only opened the door. You walked through it." Zira looked at him. Her voice was soft. "Back when I first met you, I thought humans only saw aliens as meat, as property. But you saw me." "I saw someone who needed help," he replied, "and someone worth saving." She was silent for a while. Then she asked, "Do you think I'll ever stop being afraid?" Corbin looked up at the stars. Fear, never fully leaves us. But freedom gives us something stronger. What's that? Choice, he said. And the chance to become something new. Zira turned her eyes back to the village below, where soft lights flickered like fireflies. I want to help others, she said. Like me. Still locked up. Still waiting for someone to open the cage. Corbin smiled. Then that's what you'll do? Zira stood, the wind brushing her silver hair across her face. She felt different, like something inside her had shifted. She had tasted freedom now. Not the kind that was handed to you, but the kind you lived, and she was never giving it back. The wind was cold at the edge of the village cliffs where the stone met the sky. Zira stood there alone, her silver blue skin glowing under the twin moons of Alaris. Below, the lights of the village flickered gently, and behind her, Corbin sat near a small fire waiting for her to speak. But Zira needed a moment. She had never felt so heavy and so light at the same time. Tonight marked one full cycle since Corbin had pulled her out of that cage, when she had thought he was going to eat her. She smiled now at the memory, not because it was funny, but because of how deeply she had misunderstood. Back then, eaten meant death to her. It meant being used, destroyed, forgotten. That was what her people taught, that humans were monsters. But Corbin had changed that word forever. Now, eaten meant something else. She turned and walked back toward the fire. Corbin didn't look up as she sat beside him, but he handed her a warm mug and said, "Still thinking?" Zira nodded. "I can't stop." He smiled. "That's not always a bad thing." She took a sip and stared into the flames. "When I first met you, I thought you were going to consume me. My fear told me that humans didn't care about who we were, that they would take and leave only bones behind." Corbin listened without interrupting. The firelight danced on his face, catching the soft lines around his eyes, the kind that only appear after a long life of pain and patience. Zira continued, voice low. "But you didn't destroy me. You didn't devour me. You gave me back. Pieces of myself I had already buried." Corbin finally spoke. "I didn't do anything special, Zira. I just did what was right." "No," she said firmly. "You did what no one else ever did. You saw me. You didn't need me to prove anything. You just gave me safety when I had nothing left." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "Now I know what it really means to be eaten." Corbin raised an eyebrow, confused. She looked at him, her eyes full of something fierce and raw. "It means to be accepted so deeply by someone that you live inside their world, not as prey, but as part of them. You made room for me, Corbin. Not in your ship, but in your life." He blinked, surprised. He opened his mouth to speak, but she wasn't finished. "I used to think I was broken. Too dirty, too weak, worthless, but every time you let me make a choice, every time you trusted me to stand beside you, you were feeding me something. Something I didn't know I was starving for." Corbin's voice was quiet. "And what was that?" "Belonging," she whispered. Silence settled between them again, thick and warm like a blanket. The wind around the cliff's edge sang softly through the tall grass. It no longer sounded like a warning. It sounded like music. Zira placed her hand over his. "You changed what the word human means to me. You changed what I mean to me." Corbin turned to her, and for a long moment he didn't speak. He didn't. Then he said, "You know what the first thing I thought when I saw you in that cage?" She shook her head. "I thought, that's someone who still has fight left in her eyes. I didn't see weakness. I saw someone waiting for the right reason to stand." Tears filled Zira's eyes, but they didn't fall. She had cried enough in cages. Now she just let herself feel. She leaned her head on his shoulder and said, "Then let's never go back to who we were. Let's make sure we never forget what freedom tastes like." "We won't," Corbin promised. Behind them, the fire flickered low. Below them, the village glowed like stars had fallen to the earth, and above them, the sky stretched wide and open. Zira closed her eyes. She had not been eaten. She had been seen. She had not been owned. She had been chosen. And in the end, she had not been saved. She had been reborn. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning.